Chapter 81. You are listening at novelfull.audio. On the day when Bai Ye led He Tong and the others to leave the Empire assassination force, Kaijiao noticed something was wrong, because the people he sent should have returned. He immediately sent people to investigate, and found that the entire base of the Empire assassination force was empty, not to mention people, even the bodies were not seen, including the imperial tools and ministerial tools were gone. However, Kaijiao did not believe that the people he sent would disappear mysteriously. After a thorough investigation of the records of entering and leaving the city gate, it turned out that Bai Ye had left with the assassination team and never returned, and even took the experimenters away. It is almost certain that his men were killed and the imperial tools were taken away. Damn it! Kaijiao was so angry that he crushed the teacup in his hand. The subordinates next to him did not dare to say a word, for fear of being implicated. After a long time, Kaijiao calmed down. Without my permission, no one is allowed to spread this matter, otherwise. Kaijiao threatened everyone present, if this matter spreads, he will become a joke in the court. He was responsible for the establishment of the Empire Assassination Corps, but now the entire Assassination Corps is gone. Such a shameful thing. He doesn't want others to know before killing Bai Ye to save face. Kaijiao still has assassins under his command, and the first and most important thing is to find Bai Ye's whereabouts. The day of the appointment has arrived. Bai Ye is ready to go to the forest again. He didn't tell Sai Lu, He Tong and others where he was going, so as not to worry them. Through the Shenwei space, Bai Ye transferred himself to the forest again, and all the members of the night raid had already been waiting for him at the agreed location. At this time, Bai Ye could already see some familiar figures not far ahead. Among them, the ones he could recognize were Akame, Main, and Hill. He had never seen the faces of the others. However, the tall and strong young man with a crew cut could be judged from his figure to be the user of the armor-type imperial weapon. He's here. At this time, Leon also saw Bai Ye and spoke immediately. Seeing Bai Ye coming, Hilton showed a trace of joy on his face. Sure enough, he came to the appointment and didn't stand us up. Rabak said with his hands behind his head. If he dares to stand Hill up, I will never let him off easily. Main snorted. Are all of you waiting for me here? That when Bai Ye came in front of him, he was suddenly a little surprised. He originally thought that at most Hill, Main, and the leader of the night raid would come to discuss things with him, but he didn't expect that the entire night raid would be dispatched directly. Yes, so you should be grateful. Others don't have such good treatment. Main folded her hands in front of her chest, and her tone was not so polite. Of course, with your status and ability, we should treat you like this. Nagisa had another attitude and said to Bai Ye very friendly. My name is Nagisa. I am the captain of Night Raid, Akame is the acting captain, and there are 6 other team members. Nagisa first introduced Bai Ye briefly. Nagisa. Bai Ye's attention was immediately attracted by the other party's name. Isn't this the name of the former general of the empire? Isteth also mentioned it to him, looking at Nagisa in front of him. The right eye with an eye patch and the right hand with a replacement mechanical arm should have been disabled by Isteth. Are you the original general of the empire? Bai Ye couldn't help asking. That's right, but I'm a member of the Revolutionary Army now. Nagisa nodded and said, as far as I know, you came to the imperial capital with Isteth, and I'm also her former colleague. Well, I've heard her mention you. Bai Ye responded casually. Oh. She actually told you about this? How did she tell you? This immediately aroused Nagesitan's curiosity. In her impression, Isteth is not the kind of person who likes to chat with people around her. It means that the empire also has a general who is about the same age as her, and then she mentioned you, but this was a long time ago, and you didn't. Bai Ye said. So that's it, that guy can also say nice things. Nagesitan said with a slightly sighing tone. By the way, in addition to you and the acting captain, didn't you say there were 6 more people? Why do I see only 5 people here? Bai Ye suddenly noticed a problem. There's also Chelsea, noon our side, but you will see her later. Let's talk while walking. Nagisa said. Then, all the members of Night Raid brought Bai Ye to a wooden house, which seemed to be a temporary base of Night Raid. Outside the wooden house, there was a large stone table that could accommodate several people. Let's sit here and have a good chat. Nagesitta gestured for Bai Ye to take a seat. Just then, a little black cat suddenly appeared in the wooden house and slowly walked towards Bai Ye. Bai Ye's pupils trembled slightly. Isn't this the little guy he named Xiaohei last time? But he had long guessed that this guy was a member of the Revolutionary Army, so he didn't feel too surprised to see him again. It seems that this guy is the last one mentioned by Nagesitta, so he appeared here. Eh? Why is there a little cat here? On the contrary, Marin was surprised. So cute. Hill also exclaimed immediately. Obviously, they didn't know much about Chelsea's imperial weapon ability, and didn't realize that this little black cat might be Chelsea in disguise. There shouldn't be any stray cats around here. There are dangerous species everywhere. How did this little guy survive? Larberk asked in a puzzled tone. I guess he has been hiding in this house. We haven't been here for a long time. Brand guessed. Akagi said nothing, just stared at the little black cat blankly, and a trace of saliva flowed from the corner of her mouth at some point, as if she was greedy. Only Nagesitta thought that the little black cat should be Chelsea's transformation at the first time. She knew Chelsea's ability very well, but she didn't know what Chelsea meant by this. Suddenly at this moment, the little black cat pounced directly on Bai Ye. Chelsea's sudden further action immediately confused Nagesitta. She couldn't figure out what Chelsea was going to do. When it pounced in the air, the little black cat suddenly turned into a beautiful girl. This beautiful girl was naturally Chelsea. Meow. Chelsea still pounced on Bai Ye in the posture of a cat just now. According to this trend, it will soon press directly on Bai Ye. Chelsea meow. Chapter 82. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. At this time, Bai Ye calmly dodged to the side. For this level of surprise attack, he didn't need to use Void. Chelsea missed immediately, but with her skills, she didn't fall down, and landed smoothly like a cat. Chelsea immediately stood up and said to Bai Ye with a resentful look, Really, why do you want to avoid it? Why can't I avoid it? Bai Ye asked back. Although Chelsea had been with him in the form of a little black cat for a few days before, he was still on guard against Chelsea, especially since this was the territory of Night Raid. It was right to be cautious. You did such an excessive thing to others before, but now you don't want to take responsibility. Chelsea said sadly. What? You actually killed Chelsea? Hearing this, Marin exclaimed. Oh. In just a few days, something interesting happened. Leon was interested. Damn, I'm so envious. Larberk couldn't help but say. Nagesitta said nothing, because she knew Chelsea's character better, and she could probably tell that Chelsea was playing a prank, and Chelsea had told her before that she would give Bai Ye a surprise, and the so-called surprises were probably all kinds of pranks. Excessive things. Bai Ye was stunned for a moment, and didn't realize what Chelsea was referring to at first. Then he realized that it should be about bathing the other person. Not only did you touch my body, you also touched me secretly when I was sleeping, and now you're acting as if nothing happened. You're such a heartless man. Chelsea became more and more sad, and she said it as if it were true, and all the Night Raid members except Nagesitta believed it. Bai Ye could feel that Maine was staring at him with disdain and contempt. Leon looked like he was watching a show. Larberk was full of envy and jealousy. Akame, Hill, Brand, and Nagesitta had no reaction. You were still a black cat at that time, and how could I know that you were the black cat? Bai Ye said helplessly. Although he saw through that the black cat was a human, he could not confirm whether it was a man or a woman, or even a beautiful girl. The dress was very distinctive, and the headphones were a bit out of tune with the style of this world. To be honest, Bai Ye was a little surprised. It turned out that there were such things as headphones in this world. I have to say that the technological development of this world is very strange. If it is presented in a technology tree, I don't know how messed up it would be. But now you know that I am actually a member of the Revolutionary Army. To be precise, I am now a member of the Night Raid. Chelsea smiled and said, Let's get to know each other again. My name is Chelsea, but if you still want to continue to call me Xiaohei, that's fine. No, don't mention that name. I'll just call you Chelsea. Bai Ye said with a little embarrassment. Aren't you surprised at all? The little black cat before was actually transformed from a beautiful girl like me. Chelsea said charmingly. I really didn't expect this. Bai Ye admitted. Chelsea stared at Bai Ye's face for a long time with a meaningful smile on her face. She felt that Bai Ye's reaction was a little too bland, and she always felt a little unwilling. Okay, let's get on with the business, I won't bother you anymore. Chelsea ended this short farce. Then, she sat down next to Bai Ye. After everyone was seated, Nageshitan officially started talking to Bai Ye. Hill should have told you before that our intention is to win you over to join the Revolutionary Army. Nagesita said seriously, we have seen a lot of your actions. You are completely different from those corrupt officials. You are a very upright conscientious person, but the conscientious people have no say in the court. If this continues, the empire will only get worse, so we think that such an empire must be overthrown. There is nothing wrong with what you said, but I heard that you have cooperated with foreign ethnic groups, right? Bai Ye said slowly, the alliance between the Revolutionary Army and foreign ethnic groups has long been no secret within the empire. At the same time, in his opinion, this is also a very serious problem. The war between the Imperial Army and the Revolutionary Army is a civil war. But the alliance between the Revolutionary Army and foreign ethnic groups is equivalent to the involvement of foreign races in the civil war. If the Imperial Army and the Revolutionary Army are both defeated, and foreign ethnic groups take advantage of the opportunity to enter, then won't it turn out to be the same situation as Li Zicheng in the late Ming dynasty? The historical status of the Qing dynasty is indeed undeniable, but the civilians who were massacred in the late Ming and early Qing dynasties were innocent and tragic. If it is possible to develop into such a situation, Bai Ye will definitely not support the Revolutionary Army. Yes, we have an alliance with the Western ethnic groups, and we have good relations with the Northern and Southern ethnic groups. Now the empire's strongest death is caught in a war with the Northern ethnic groups. The situation is more favorable for us. Nageshitan nodded. Did you sign any terms in your alliance with the ethnic groups? Bai Ye asked further. Well, after we successfully overthrow the empire, we will return part of the territory to the Western ethnic groups. Part of the western part of the empire originally belonged to them. Nageshitan said truthfully. Bai Ye was silent after hearing this. Let's put it this way, even if those territories were originally the Western ethnic groups, let me give you a very simple example. In the early Han dynasty, the Heshi corridor was controlled by the Xiongnu. Later, during the reign of Emperor Wu of Han, the Heshi corridor was taken by Wei Qing and Hu Tsubing. After several decades or even hundreds of years, some people said that the Heshi corridor should be returned to the Xiongnu. How many people can accept this? Especially when Bai Ye learned about the map of the empire, he felt so involved, because the map of the empire was almost the same as the country before he traveled through time, and he could just treat the empire as an ancient dynasty. There is nothing wrong with treating Western ethnic groups as Xiongnu, and once the empire was really overthrown by the Revolutionary Army, it would be difficult to say how much territory the ethnic groups coveted in the empire. Bai Ye probably had this idea because of his stereotype of ancient ethnic groups. The most classic example is the 5 barbarians invading China, in which the Han people were almost exterminated. Bai Ye's concept is very simple and direct. The civil war of the empire is a civil war, and it will never be the turn of foreign races to intervene. Although the saying that those who are not of my race must have different hearts is a bit extreme, it also makes sense. Facts have proved that Bai Ye's worries were right. In the original book, if the 400,000 northern aliens had not been crushed by his death, the fate of the northern people of the empire would have been the same as that of Isteth's people, and the western aliens took advantage of the chaos of the battle between the Imperial Army and the Revolutionary Army to invade the empire's territory. Taking the invasion of territory in ancient times as an example, massacres were commonplace. Even after the empire was overthrown, the northern aliens formed an alliance with the western aliens, which is the most ironic. First of all, there is a key point that the northern and western aliens were beaten to death by Isteth's army when she was alive. It was she who prevented the aliens from invading the empire. Then the question is, the new empire established by the Revolutionary Army loves peace and even cedes a lot of territory to the aliens. It is believed that it will not invade the aliens again, so what is the purpose of the alliance between the northern and western aliens? Isn't this very intriguing? Chapter 83. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. The map of the empire that readers want. It can't be that they are forming an alliance to play, right? This is not a game of playing house. This means that the northern and western ethnic groups are most likely to form an alliance to invade the empire, because the power of the new empire is still very strong and still controls many imperial tools. If the northern and western ethnic groups had not been destroyed by his death long ago, would they be so contented to watch the revolutionary army establish a new empire? You must know that in the his death period, the aliens were attacked by his death because they took the initiative to invade, and the aliens could not be content forever. After all, referring to the ancient Central Plains, the land where the empire is located is indeed very fertile, and everyone is eyeing this land. His death died at the hands of the revolutionary army that established the new empire. The previous oppression of the aliens brought peace to the new empire, which is somewhat ironic. I understand. Then I'm sorry that I can't join you, because I have already established my own organization. Bai Ye only said one of the main reasons. Another main reason is that he finds it difficult to accept the revolutionary army's joint attack on his own country with the aliens. Has the new organization been established? Nageshitan was surprised. It's a pity, but we can cooperate. She felt that the organization established by Bai Ye must be against the empire. That's probably impossible, because our idea is to change the empire from the inside. Bai Ye expressed his thoughts slightly euphemistically. He didn't directly say that he didn't agree with your ideas, but he was only slightly euphemistic. Is that so? In fact, we also thought about changing the empire from the inside, but later found that this method didn't work at all. Minister Ernest's power in the court was too strong. The slightest sign would be directly extinguished. At present, those conscientious factions can only survive under the protection of General Bud, and basically can't do anything. Nageshitan sighed slightly and said, and the most important thing is that the revolution can win more people's hearts. If you want to change the empire from the inside, it will be difficult to get along with the people. The reason why their revolutionary army can grow to this point is because they can win the hearts of the people. The people with limited vision have long been resentful of the empire, and they look at things in a limited way. They will not consider things so comprehensively. Looking at various peasant uprisings in ancient times, almost most of them will have various problems due to the limitations of peasants. Most of them will not consider so much, and they just want to overthrow this brutal empire. If you want to change the empire from the inside, instead of declaring to overthrow the empire directly, it will be difficult to win the hearts of the people. Of course, there will still be a lot of people who support it, just like the reformists in the late Qing dynasty. But the power of this part of the people is not enough for people like Nageshitan to defeat Minister Ernest. In fact, in the original book, what the revolutionary army did was essentially to overthrow the Ernest regime. The officials of the new empire were still the officials of the old empire, but the dishonest ones were eliminated. In comparison, this is not much different from changing the empire from the inside. It's just that the success rate of the two routes is different. According to the situation in the original book, the route of changing the empire from the inside is almost impossible to succeed, so the only way is to take the revolutionary route. So I won't force you to be like me, but it's hard for me to cooperate with you. However, I may be the same as you in overthrowing the Ernest regime. Bai Ye can also understand the difficulties of the revolutionary army. That's fine. We mainly want to overthrow Minister Ernest. We can cooperate in this regard. Nageshitan said. But let me say something unpleasant. I don't want you to overthrow the entire empire. Bai Ye said bluntly. To be precise, I don't want you to create a chaotic situation with the imperial army to prevent foreign races from taking advantage of the situation. So you are worried about those foreign races, but without the power of those foreign races, it will be difficult for our revolutionary army to defeat the empire. Nageshitan can still understand what Bai Ye cares about. After all, foreign races have frequently invaded the empire since ancient times, and she knows this, but she has no choice. The revolutionary army must rely on the power of foreign races to win. So just leave it to me. I have the confidence to overthrow the Ernest regime, and you don't have to flirt with foreign races. Bai Ye said in a deep voice, although the current strength of the Akatsuki organization is relatively weak, his personal strength ceiling is extremely high, and there is also Isteth. At the beginning, Isteth told him that as long as he could defeat Isteth, he could do whatever he wanted, then why not let Isteth submit to the Akatsuki organization? In this way, the trump card of the Oneist regime is Ace, Des was gone, and the rest of the misfits collapsed. If Bai Ye didn't have the confidence to defeat Isteth one-on-one, his kaleidoscope double power would have been wasted. I've always thought you were weird. You're really conceited and naive. At this time, Main couldn't help but say, she was a mixed race of Western ethnic groups and the empire. She was bullied because of this identity when she was young, so she was more sensitive to topics about ethnic groups. She was naturally upset about Bai Ye talking about ethnic groups like this. In addition, Bai Ye just said something that she thought was particularly arrogant, which made her even more upset. If one person could overthrow the earnest regime, what was the point of their huge revolutionary army? Main. Hill was worried and hurriedly dissuaded Main, but Main is not so easily persuaded. She continued, let's not talk about anything else. Let's talk about the strongest, Isteth in the empire. Can you beat her? I'm sure, and how do you know if you don't try? Bai Ye said calmly. He could understand the other party's dissatisfaction, so he would not get angry. Arrogant, if it were as easy as you said. Main said with contempt. Okay, Main, don't say anything. At this time, Nageshitan interrupted Main and Bai Ye's dispute. You know Isteth, you should also know how strong that woman is. According to my estimation, at least 10 imperial weapon users and 50,000 elite soldiers are needed to defeat her. Can your organization come up with so many people? Main snorted and turned her face away, looking like a child who ignores you when angry. I can handle this matter by myself, but you won't believe me now, so there's nothing to say. Anyway, I've made my point clear. Bai Ye ended the topic directly to avoid unnecessary arguments. Nageshitan said calmly, whether it's true or not, if you can really defeat Isteth, then we are willing to obey you. P.S. I'll update the 3rd chapter later. I can't delay it any longer, but I don't recommend you to stay up late. Chapter 87. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. On the front line of the battlefield, the fortress city of the Northern Aliens. Originally, the Northern Aliens, led by the brave warrior of the North, Numasika, who was also the prince of the Northern Aliens, concentrated their elite troops in the fortress city and used it as a base to strengthen the invasion war against the Empire. The Northern Aliens were at their peak. The brave warrior of the North, Numasika, was brave and good at fighting. Facing the corrupt and poorly trained Imperial army, he won every battle, causing the Empire to lose a lot of territory. He was brave and resourceful, and was loved by the Northern Alien people, and was regarded as a powerful threat by the Empire. Therefore, the Empire formed a Northern Expeditionary Force to counter the invasion, and Isteth led the army. Isteth and his 3 beast warriors defeated the 400,000-strong army of the Northern Aliens with lightning speed, and the so-called brave warrior of the North was also slaughtered. He was not the strongest opponent of the Empire at all. As expected of Lord Isteth, the dignity of these barbaric foreigners has been trampled by the general. Ha ha ha, the brave warrior of the North is nothing but a dead dog in front of the general. Only the general can suppress the 400,000-strong army of the Northern foreign race almost instantly. As Isteth completely defeated the army of the Northern foreign race, the soldiers around him flattered him. What they said sounded like villain behavior. The Imperial army itself was not a good thing, but the Northern foreign army was even less a good thing. You must know that the Northern foreign races were the aggressive ones, and the army led by Isteth was anti-aggression. General, there are still hundreds of thousands of survivors in the entire fortress city, including soldiers and civilians. Do you want to take them captives back? At this time, a subordinate came to report the situation to Isteth. No, they are all a bunch of wasteful wastes of food. Just bury them all alive. Leave this matter to the 3 beast warriors. At this time, Isteth was sitting on a throne, with her slender legs crossed and her right hand supporting her side face. With a domineering temperament, she said something chilling in a cold tone. Even the soldiers were shocked by the cruelty of General Isteth. These were hundreds of thousands of living people buried alive. Of course, they were only frightened for a while. They could not have any sympathy for the enemy, let alone disobey General Isteth. First of all, the current situation of the empire could not bear the huge burden brought by hundreds of thousands of captives. Not to mention how much food would be consumed by so many captives, it was still a huge hidden danger and could rebel at any time, and his death also obeyed the orders from the imperial capital, but she felt that there was no need to explain so much to her subordinates. Secondly, she really didn't care about the lives of those weak people at all. It has nothing to do with the hatred of being exterminated by the northern foreign races. Isdeth has always been so ruthless to any enemy. Under the order of Isdeth, the three beast warriors began to take charge of this matter. First, they asked a group of men to dig huge pits, and then they could bury the soldiers and civilians of the northern foreign races alive. The prestige of the three beast warriors in the army is second only to Isdeth. They are all ruthless people selected by Isdeth himself. When selecting the three beast warriors, various devil trainings directly killed many people, and finally only these three people stood out, and each of them is an imperial weapon user, and their strength is very strong. Lord Isdeth, the burying work will probably take a few days to complete. At this time, Leva, one of the three beast warriors, a middle-aged man with gray and white hair, knelt on one knee in front of Isdeth. He is the former imperial general and Bran's former boss. After experiencing some changes, he became a member of the three beast warriors under Isdeth. Beside Leva, the other two of the three beast warriors were also kneeling, namely Nyo and Didos. The short, delicate-looking Nyo, who was dressed like a girl, was actually a man. Didos was a tall and strong man wearing a strange eye mask, with a double-edged axe on his back, which was his imperial weapon. Two great axes. Belwak. It's hard to find a picture of the three beast warriors in the same frame, so let's just take a look. Well, let's take a break for the next few days. By then, there will probably be an order from the imperial capital. Let's see if we want to pursue the victory and kill all the northern foreign peoples, or if there are other things. Isdeth said lightly, at present, it is a foregone conclusion that the remaining northern foreign peoples in the fortress city will be killed, including not only the army, but also a large number of civilians. Of course, there is an important premise that this fortress city was established after the northern foreign peoples invaded the territory within the empire, so this is a war that took place within the empire. Those civilians who are about to be killed, they all followed the northern foreign army to invade and immigrate here. This is the strategy that Numasika, the North hero, thought of. He invaded the empire's territory while immigrating. This invasion is more efficient. To put it bluntly, it is a form of colonial invasion. The troops and civilians who followed the North hero into the empire's territory will eventually become victims as the war fails. This strategy itself is implemented to invade the empire. One thing is one thing. Isdeth is indeed extremely cruel, but it is better to say that the North hero personally killed the people who supported him rather than Isdeth killing innocent people under the instructions of the imperial capital. It feels like Lord Isdeth seems to have some worries recently. Has something troubled him? At this time, Leva asked carefully. He noticed that Lord Isdeth was a little abnormal recently. He would be distracted and thinking about something from time to time. If it were in the past, Lord Isdeth would definitely not be like this. There is indeed something that I am concerned about. I don't know why, but I think about that guy more and more frequently recently. As Riva mentioned this matter, Bai Ye's face suddenly appeared in Isdeth's mind. Who is it? How could Isdeth-sama be so concerned about him? Nu was surprised. It's Bai Ye that I mentioned to you before. Isdeth said without any hesitation. I don't know if I should say something. Riva seemed to have thought of the reason, but hesitated whether to say it, because he felt that it would offend Isdeth-sama. Just say it directly, I won't mind. Isdeth is not so tolerant. Okay. Riva nodded and said, I think Isdeth-sama is likely to fall in love. Huh? Nu and Dida next to him looked at Riva in disbelief. Although one of them is a battle maniac and the other is a perverted hobbyist and they don't really understand things like love, they always feel that Lady Isdeth's personality is completely incompatible with the word love. Chapter 88. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Lady Isdeth, who has a very personality, has nothing to do with love no matter how you think about it. Nyo and Didos both think that Lady Isdeth may at most recruit some male favorites to abuse her, although they have never seen Lady Esteth do so, and it is obvious that she is not interested at all, they feel that Lady Esteth cannot fall in love like a little woman. Or it is impossible to imagine the scene of Lady Esteth falling in love like a little woman. I am just guessing. If I offend you, I hope Lady Esteth will forgive me. Riva said very cautiously. Love. Esteth fell into a brief silence. I have heard of love before, it is the feeling of love between men and women. Yes, Lady Esteth may have feelings for that Lord Bai Ye, so she thinks of him frequently. This is a common phenomenon for men and women in love. Riva explained. So that's how it is. This does make sense. I don't feel this way with other men, but I feel differently with him. Esteth thought seriously, as if she had been awakened by Riva's words. Her originally cold and beautiful face suddenly showed an unprecedented blush, but it didn't look like she was shy, but a feeling of being in love. Seeing this expression of Lord Esteth, Nyo and Didas were so shocked that their jaws almost dropped to the ground. This was not the expression that Lord Esteth would make in their cognition. Riva was also shocked and widened his eyes. Now he was more certain that Lord Esteth was definitely in love. Although the three beast men had never seen Lord Bai, the man who could be favored by Lord Esteth and even regarded as a love object must be a very outstanding man. Occasionally, Lord Esteth would mention to them some things about Lord Bai Ye, such as Lord Bai Ye was about to become Lord Esteth's deputy general, which they already knew. Esteth suddenly woke up and understood the reason why she had that inexplicable uncomfortable feeling before, which must be because of love. I really didn't expect that I, who had only known how to fight, would suddenly feel like falling in love. Esteth sighed immediately. Maybe it's because Lord Esteth had never met such an excellent man before Lord Bai Ye. Riva guessed. Esteth thought about it. Indeed, he is very good, and he just fits my taste in all aspects. It's also a happy thing for Lord Esteth to meet his true love. Riva said immediately. What about you? You don't seem to be in love. Esteth asked casually when he had nothing to do. I'm already an old man, it's not appropriate for my age. Riva said calmly. In fact, he is 40 years old this year, but in his eyes, he is also an old man. At this age, he is no longer interested in that kind of thing. As for me, I prefer to dissect small animals and collect women's faces rather than fall in love. Nyo showed an innocent and cute smile on her face, but she said something incredible. These are his perverted hobbies. Your hobbies are still so unique. Riva sighed. Me too, I just want to get more experience points. The smile on Didas's face was much more ferocious than Nyo's. That's right. Esteth said nothing more. She was already a little impatient to go back to Bai Ye, but for now, the war on the front line is more important. While killing the northern aliens in the fortress city, we must also be wary of the northern aliens outside the empire continuing to invade. In the original novel, Esteth suddenly came to her senses during this period. After returning to the imperial capital from the northern front, she told the young emperor and minister Ernest that she wanted to fall in love. At the same time, everyone in the night raid base has learned of Bai Ye's arrival. Bai Ye is here, I guess he has something important to talk to us about. Nagesita said, let's go together, just like last time. Not long after, all the members of Night Raid came to the wooden house again, which was their temporary base, but this time there was someone who was a little unexpected for them. Hey Tong. Aka Tong saw the figure beside Bai Ye that she was worried about day and night, and her face suddenly looked a little surprised. Sister. At this time, Hey Tong showed a faint smile on her face, seemingly no hostility. However, if she hadn't promised Bai Ye that she wouldn't attack casually, she would have probably drawn her sword by now. I didn't expect you to bring Hey Tong here on your own initiative. I thought you would let Chi Tong go to your place to meet Hey Tong. Nageshitan was also surprised. The main reason is that I also have something to ask you, and I brought Hey Tong with me. Bai Ye explained. What is it? Nageshitan asked. I want to know who are the conscience faction of the empire. Bai Ye didn't beat around the bush and said directly. We have a specific list here, so let's just give it to you directly. Nageshitan said, although I can't guarantee that it covers all the Conscience Faction officials, the main officials are basically included. Okay, thank you for your trouble. Bai Ye nodded. Nageshivan went directly back to the base to get the list. At this moment, Chi Tong suddenly asked Bai Ye, can I be alone with Hei Tong for a while? Of course, but you can't do anything wrong. Bai Ye agreed. No. Chi Tong then walked in front of Hei Tong. Hei Tong, let's go. Hei Tong nodded slightly and followed her sister. After a while, Chi Tong and Hei Tong came to a deserted place. The two sat on a huge stone together. They hadn't sat together like this for a long time. Hei Tong, I heard from Bai Ye that you have left the Empire Assassination Force. I tried to persuade you for a long time but you didn't listen to me. Chi Tong spoke first. Because my sister joined the rebels, I don't want to betray everyone like my sister. Hei Tong's tone was very gentle, but what he said was not so gentle. Although I like my sister's seriousness in achieving her lofty ambitions, I still have to kill her. I hope she can stay with me forever. Hearing this, Chi Tong remained calm, as if she had expected it. After all, Bai Ye had reminded her before. Sure enough, Hei Tong is still the same, but you didn't draw your sword and chop me directly this time. Is it because of that boy named Bai Ye? P.S. The gift value is almost reached, and I will update it tomorrow. I will try to update it as early as possible tomorrow. Chapter 89. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Well, the commander forbids me to do it, otherwise he won't let me come with you. Hei Tong nodded slightly. So that's the case. Tong said, that's good, at least we can have a chance to have a good chat. I brought some snacks. Do you want to eat, sister? Hei Tong took out a bag of snacks from her arms. Of course, there are no drugs in this bag of snacks, otherwise she wouldn't take it out to share with her sister. Wanting her sister to become a member of the 8 houses is completely different from using drugs to harm her sister, at least for Hei Tong. She doesn't want to use drugs to harm her sister. Yeah. Tong took the snacks handed over by Hei Tong, and didn't doubt Hei Tong, as if this was her confidence that she was very familiar with her sister. It's only been a short time since I separated from my sister, but it feels like a very long time has passed. Hei Tong suddenly sighed. About 2 months ago, we were together every day no matter what happened. Yes, at that time, Hei Tong would follow me even when I took a shower. At this time, Chi Tong and Hei Tong were sitting on the same stone, but they were at least 1 meter apart. It's the same with my sister. She always slept with me. Hei Tong smiled and said, although the daily training was very hard and tiring at that time, I was really happy to be with my sister every day. Yes, but we can continue to be together in the future. Chi Tong said calmly. Although Hei Tong still wanted to kill Chi Tong had already changed her mind, ever since she learned that Hei Tong no longer worked for the Empire's assassination forces, but followed Bai Ye to plan to change the Empire from the inside. She felt that Hei Tong no longer needed her to free him personally. Sister, are you still saying this? If the commander hadn't told me not to do this, I would really like to kill her right away, so that we can be together forever in the future. Hei Tong's eyes suddenly became gloomy, and she tried her best to restrain herself from pulling out the 8 chambers from her waist. If Chi Tong and Hei Tong really fought directly at this time, it would be hard to say who would win or lose. There are 2 endings in the original book, one is being defeated by Chi Tong, and the other is being killed by Chi Tong. Anyway, Hei Tong's ending is defeat, but before the defeat, Hei Tong was already in a half-crippled state. Chelsea's assassination brought her serious sequelae, and even the medicine was useless, including her 8 chambers doll, which was far worse than before. Knowing that she didn't have much time left, she dragged her half-crippled body to fight her sister. At this time, Hei Tong might still lose, but Chi Tong would definitely not be as relaxed as in the original book. Fortunately, Bai Ye would not let Hei Tong do this no matter what. Hei Tong, you have really changed. If it were before, no one could stop you. Tong sighed. She knew that this was the change that Bai Ye brought to Hei Tong. If Bai Ye had not denied his relationship with Hei Tong before, Tong would probably have asked Hei Tong how far he and Bai Ye had progressed. Yes, the commander is simply the savior of all of us. If it weren't for him, we don't know how many companions would have been punished during this period. Haitong nodded. I know it's still unrealistic for you to recognize the Revolutionary Army now, but what we have to do now is the same. Aren't those pests that make the empire dark and corrupt our common goal? Akatong thought about slowly easing the relationship with Haitong. Haitong was silent for a while, as if her sister's words moved her, but she was only a little moved, and she said in a slightly cold tone, I understand, after eradicating those pests, I will kill my sister, yeah. Akato smiled with relief. If that day really comes, I would rather die in Haitong's hands. She had long since put her life and death aside. If she was afraid of death, she would not have left the Empire Assassination Corps and joined the Revolutionary Army. After all the pests headed by Minister Onest were eradicated, her ambition was also realized. She would rather be killed by Haitong without any regrets. She knew that she had committed countless crimes and had caused too much killing in both the Assassination Corps and the night raid. It might be good to be killed by Haitong as redemption. Haitong's face was a little stunned, surprised by what her sister said. So before that, we need your help. Akato continued, of course, I don't mean for you to join the Revolutionary Army, but to cooperate with us night raid temporarily, with Onest as your enemy. Minister Special is the ultimate goal. After successfully solving Minister Ernest, you can kill me. I won't resist at that time. It's a deal. Kurwa nodded and accepted the conditions proposed by Akato. I don't want my sister to die in the hands of others, so before that, I will protect my sister. Until then, Akato shortened the distance between herself and Kurwa, sat directly beside Kurwa, and gently held Kurwa's left hand. At the same time, on the other side, Bai Ye just chatted with the rest of the night raid, although there was nothing to talk about. With Leon and Brand, two more enthusiastic people, the atmosphere was not awkward. As for Maine, her attitude towards him was still not very friendly. On the other hand, Chulsi was the opposite of Maine. She was the closest to Bai Ye. Chulsi stood directly beside Bai Ye. Have you tasted the lollipop I gave you last time? Well, it tastes good. Bai Ye nodded. Marin, who saw everything that Chelsea did, couldn't help but feel confused. She didn't understand why Chelsea was so close to Bai Ye, even though that guy was so annoying. Just then, Nageshitan came back with some information. She handed the information to Bai Ye. This contains the list of those conscientious officials. Bai Ye took the information and quickly scanned it. It was found that there were not many officials of the Conscience faction, and many of them were already dead. They were naturally killed by people sent by Minister Ernest. At this time, Bai Ye saw a more important person, the former Minister Qiaoli. Another translation, Qiaoli. When Qiaoli was in office, the empire was still strong, and compared to now, it can be said that the country was peaceful and the people were safe. After the new Minister Ernest took office, Qiaoli went into seclusion, and was also protected by General Bud, otherwise he would have been liquidated by Ernest long ago. Suddenly, Chi Tong and Hei Tong came back together. They were holding hands and looked very intimate. Chi Tong, what are you doing? Seeing this, Nageshitan was immediately surprised. Chi Tong directly asked Nageshitan, I want to carry out the next assassination mission with Hei Tong. Chapter 90. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. Bai Ye's attention immediately shifted from the list of the Conscience faction to Chi Tong and Hei Tong. He couldn't help but be surprised that the relationship between Chi Tong and Hei Tong had suddenly reconciled. Originally, he thought that according to Hei Tong's attitude towards Chi Tong, there was no hope of reconciliation in a short time, including other people. The reaction was similar. The appearance of Chi Tong and Hei Tong in front of him was completely a pair of sisters with a very good relationship. It's okay to let you act together, but I'm curious why your relationship has suddenly become so good. Nageshitan asked immediately. I made an agreement with Hei Tong that after killing Minister Ernest, she will kill me personally. Chang Tong explained, so now Hei Tong is willing to cooperate with us. I see. Nageshitan nodded slightly. As for Chi Tong's willingness to die at Hei Tong's hands, she didn't say anything about it because she respected Chi Tong's wishes. They had promised Chi Tong before, but only let Chi Tong handle the matter between Chi Tong and Hei Tong on her own. Now it's time to fulfill the promise. Then, Akaji, you will. Main's face suddenly showed sadness. Well, I've made up my mind. On the other hand, Akagi said calmly. Okay. Main didn't know what to say. Bai Ye felt relieved after understanding the whole story. Although strictly speaking, Akagi and Hei Tong only reconciled temporarily, this can be said to be a very important step. You should know that the effect of brainwashing on Hei Tong will slowly weaken. By the time Minister Ernest is eliminated, the brainwashing effect may have almost weakened. But I do have a task for you guys. Recently, a serial killer has appeared in the capital. He comes out late at night and randomly selects innocent people on the street to behead. There are already 20 to 30 known victims, and the actual number is estimated to be doubled. At this time, Nageshitan said, many of the guards in the capital are also victims. They are crazy enough to attack people indiscriminately. It should be the guy named, Beheading Zank. He seems to be an imperial weapon user. Rabak said. Yes, it's him. Nageshitan nodded. Beheading Zank. Bai Ye hasn't paid much attention to the security issues in the capital recently, so he didn't know that there was a serial killer doing evil in the capital. If it happened during his tenure, he would have led the Imperial Guards to get rid of this killer. You don't even know this. You are really incompetent as an official in the capital. Main deliberately mocked Bai Ye. That. Sorry, I don't know either. At this time, Hill raised his hand with a blank face and said. No, Hill, you simply forgot. Main was immediately embarrassed and complained. Beheading Zank was originally the executioner in charge of beheading in the largest prison in the empire. Because of the tyranny of Minister Ernest, countless innocent people were beheaded. Beheading Zank executed too many people day and night, and finally became addicted to beheading. Nagesita explained the details of beheading Zank to Bai Ye. And Zank also stole the imperial tool that the warden originally had. With his powerful strength, he killed people everywhere even more recklessly. Brand also said, when he escaped from the prison with the imperial tool before, the warden formed a crusade to hunt him down. Unexpectedly, he dared to kill people directly on the streets of the imperial capital. It seems that executing prisoners in prison alone is not enough for him. It's okay to hand this guy over to Akahima and Kurohima, right? As she said, Nageshitan looked at Bai Ye. Kuriko is now a member of your organization, so I have to ask for your opinion first. At this time, Akahima and Kurohima also looked at Bai Ye at the same time, as if they were expecting Bai Ye to agree. Of course I have no objection to this, you two sisters should get along well. Bai Ye also hoped that Kurohima and Akahima's relationship would improve. In this way, Kurohima and Akahima would not have to kill each other. That's good. Tonight, Zank the Beheader should still be active on the streets of the imperial capital. Civilians are afraid to go out at night because of Zank the Beheader. If you wander around the streets, you will be directly regarded as his beheading target. Nagesita said, then Zank the Beheader will be left to you to deal with. Well, my sister and I can't fail together. Hei Tong said confidently. But we can't be careless, the other party is also an imperial weapon user. Akagi said cautiously. Nagesita was of course very relieved. One was the ace of the Revolutionary Army, and the other was the ace of the Imperial Assassination Force. She felt that sending these two aces to assassinate Zank Decapitation was a bit too bullying, but the safer the better. If a companion accidentally dies during the mission, it will be too late to regret. In addition, we have another assassination target, that is, Minister Ernest's distant relative, named Ayakar. At this time, Nagesita continued, he relied on Minister Ernest's power to kidnap women and humiliate them to death. Until now, no one has been able to punish him. This mission is very important. In addition to Akagi and Hei Tong going to deal with Zank Decapitation, all of us are responsible for this mission. By the way, including those mercenaries who protect Ayako, they are also criminals who are in collusion with the evil, and they are all regarded as assassination targets. Moreover, those mercenaries are masters from the Royal Fist Temple, so don't underestimate them. Nagesita gave another task, then, she asked Bai Ye, now I don't know if you are willing to act with us, Bai Ye, if Bai Ye is willing to help them, then their success rate will be greatly improved. No problem. Bai Ye nodded, at least we are consistent in eradicating the pests of the empire. Okay. Then we should formulate a battle plan. Main is the main force in the assassination of Ayako. With her imperial weapon, she can shoot Ayako from a distance, but someone needs to protect her because her close combat ability is a weakness. Nagesitta briefly described the battle plan. Except for Main and the people who protect her, the rest of us will deal with the mercenaries who protect Ayako. This is the safest plan. No one had any objection to the battle plan conceived by Nagesitta. Now we need to consider the candidate to protect Marin. How about Bai Ye? Nagesitta suggested. She knew that Marin was the one who had the worst relationship with Bai Ye in the team, so she wanted to take this opportunity to let the two of them improve their relationship. After all, they might have long-term cooperation with Bai Ye in the future, and it would be bad if the relationship within the team was not harmonious. P.S. There will be an update tomorrow at noon, and there will be no delay.